Do you have video?
We have video, I'm just making sure we have captions. Okay, go ahead.
I make a motion to open the meeting. Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Is there any disclosures or conflict of interest with any of the agenda items for our special meeting?
I do not have anything to disclose.
I do not. No.
I don't either. Want Cliff's notes on anything, just to, is anybody there?
No,
Okay.
it's just us, but
It's
if
us.
anybody did want to raise their hand or
Okay.
let us know, we keep it happy.
Okay. I make a motion, we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing an employee matter. Second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Yes.
Mayor Plummer. Motion passes.
Okay. Pause, please.
Okay,
I make a motion to leave executive session.
Second.
In stereo. It was a tie.
Trustee Coe.
Yes.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
I will make a motion to give a raise to the foreman of the DPW, Jason Cernas, to $29 an hour, effective tomorrow.
On a second. Which is effective July 29th.
Yep, 7.
July 29th, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I would like
How
to,
about me? Oh. Did I
did
say
Lisa
that?
vote?
Did you ask
Did
me?
Elisa vote?
Yeah, I thought you voted, guys.
Did I say aye? I don't think I
Yes,
said
you did.
I did? Oh, my gosh.
The summer heat
Where
wave.
am I? I know.
Oh, my God.
It's the heat.
Hay fumes.
It's the heat.
Oh, it's hay fumes, it could be that.
Okay, we have another motion. I believe.
Yeah, I would like to make another motion with the DPW that the superintendent be instructed to prepare performance reviews of all of his reports within the next 60 days, and that they be delivered to the Board of Trustees for review.
One second. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, on to bill pay.
No, real quick.
Oh,
The movement of records to the law.
oh, I'm sorry, the movement of records to the Warren House, yeah.
With
Yeah.
part of, as you know, we had a structural engineer come in. We have too much weight on the top floors, which was anticipated. The mayor was successful in negotiating with the school district to allow us to put some long-term storage over there. I just need approval from the board to understand we're shifting permanently some records. We have them, they're all foilable records, they're all scanned. We have ability to get them at any time. They're a mile away.
And it's in a secured room that's already an archival room that's been designated by the
Right.
school district. And what's so great about the Lamb House, it's a fireproof building. Yeah,
Are there keys to the room and who will have
Yep.
keys?
yeah,
We will have keys here at the office,
Yeah.
and we'll have access at any given time.
Okay.
It's just getting the weight. Obviously, it's for long-term protection of the building. We just way overweight.
yeah. And we also have a separate shelf, a separate section that is identified for our archives. Separate. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for being creative and finding space.
I think the mayor
There's a limited
should,
number of people that have keys, right?
yes, they'll be secure.
And there's very limited number within the school district. I think it's only 2 people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So they'll be
very,
protected.
very secured.
It's
Yeah.
a smart thing to do since we're at capacity.
Yeah.
So just approval for the movement of those records.
I'll make a motion that we approve the moving of the archives from the village hall, second floor, to the long building. Second, is it in the second floor?
It's actually in the 3rd floor ballroom.
Third floor ballroom.
Yes.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Next.
Bill Pay.
Okay, now we bill pay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the bill pay as presented.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
We also have the Arboretum item on the agenda. We have a request from the Friends of the Arboretum And this was related to the ability to cut certain invasive trees. And I believe that it would be in the interest of the village and the work of the volunteers to proceed with that work. We have a limited window over the summer when they're able to easily get together as volunteers and work outside. We have current pressing work with the blazing of the trails, and some of those trees are in the way. The work is also aligned with the comprehensive plan as far as the removal of invasive species. And I believe that it would be really a truly lost opportunity if we didn't allow this volunteer group to prepare with their work as they've intended. I've also spoken, I wanted to mention yesterday with Frank Kakamies from the group, and we talked about some of the processes around removing the invasives. And he did mention that what they've done with some of the small trees in the past is actually removal of the roots as well, which is more likely to achieve the eradication of the plants. So I think the group is well aware of the practices. This would be done in conjunction with the DPW collaboratively and in discussion with the DPW as far as which ones would be removed and with what schedule. And safety would certainly be a priority. So with that, I will make a motion that we grant consent for a period of 2 years from date of issuance to the Friends of the Arboretum to cut down invasive trees of up to 6 inches DBH in the Robert C. Corby Arboretum. And this would be granted pursuant to the terms of Village Code 17610, and of course it may be revoked at any time with by the Board of Trustees.
I will second for purposes of discussion.
Yes, Zach?
I just wanted to point out that there is a time of year that this should be done to inhibit the amount of growth that taking these trees down could promote. So once the seed starts to spread by cutting these trees down, and what are you going to do with them at that point once they're in seed? You can't bring them anywhere. They have to sit dormant until the seed is dormant. There's a time of year that this should be done, but this is not.
What time is it, Zach? What time?
Winter time.
You received a Lanthus right up in your packet?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's about the process. I'm speaking specifically to Lanthus, and I think you are as well, because that's really the most significant of the trees. Have they been trained in the removal of Lanthus? Because you've reached out to PRISM.
Yes, I've reached
So
out
if
to
you want to
Prism.
fill us in on that, please.
Because the board has deemed me to get an RFP together for the invasive removal. It's reached out to PRISM because
They're the ones.
I don't know about removal of invasives, and I want to make sure the RFP is appropriately formatted. There is specific ways to remove it. They want to do an on-site visit. They can help us with getting that all together. You very well might not see an RFP on the 15th, just because if we want to do it, we want to do it right. So we want the language, everything to go out. And to be honest, it's not in my wheelhouse, so I'm going to have to reach out to professionals to get the right information in the RFP. So we need to develop the history of the property is one of the things. So it is going to take a little bit, but we want to be careful how we just jump in. Even he said there is an appropriate way of removing these trees because it's problematic.
So Justin, do the Friends know that?
I believe from speaking with Frank that they are well aware of that. And my understanding is that, yes, there are probably different practices that you would use for large-scale remediation and removal, but we need to talk about the short-term goals of what the Friends of the Arboretum are doing, which is to understand where to put a trail, and they've been authorized to do some weeding in conjunction with that. They need to make their way through very dense areas in order to understand where the trail would be. And I think that some of these trees, which are identified as invasives, are in the way of doing some of that work. And I think that they are well aware of the best practices. And to me, there's very little risk if an invasive tree is cut in the Arboretum. And so I'd like to allow them to proceed with it.
So you do know when you cut down an Ailanthus at a certain size, all it does is spread the rhizomes and roots within a 20-foot radius. So it's not as simple as cutting down a tree. That's been the issue. So
Is it a certain size tree?
yeah, it's just like the little Ailanthus, we can dig out and get the entire
Get the
root.
roots,
So,
which is what
right,
they're
so
doing.
that's something that they can do
Yes.
with tiny ones.
Yes.
But when you go into a 6-inch caliper, you're at a different way of eradicating. And the only way to actually eliminate Atlantis over time is a chemical treatment of the tree. That is the only way. That's why I put it in your packet, so we really understand, because I agree, I applaud the Friends of the Arboretum for really wanting to do this work, but I don't want them to have to keep wash, rinse, repeat, that they'd have to keep coming back because it wasn't, addressed in a way that would be meaningful for them, So with that being said, PRISM, and again, I'll explain what PRISM does, Partnership for the Removal of Invasive Species Management. It is, they work in conjunction with the DEC. We have the Finger Lakes region that we're included in. That was the contact that you had today. What they do is they work and train volunteer groups such as Friends of the Arboretum, and they can come in and set up a program and train everybody how to do it properly. So they don't have to keep trying to get rid of these plants that'll just keep springing up over and over again.
Okay.
So I think that would be certainly a component going forward of this.
I think the great thing about invasive species is that there's no shortage. I think that we can share the work with PRISM and with Friends of the Arboretum. Having some experience with members of the Friends of the Arboretum, I've heard that they have certified master gardeners in their group, and they're doing this on a volunteer basis. They seem aware of the invasive, how to deal with the species. They've talked about, being able to possibly push over some of the trees they've cut down to expose the roots and extract those. So they're aware of the techniques that were discussed.
Yeah, the drying and curing of the
mitigation,
root.
in the mitigation material that was distributed. I really do not think this group is going to waste their volunteer sweat in doing things that are not effective. I think it's going to let them go forward, and I see very little risk in this overall exercise in authorizing them.
Justin, are they willing to work with PRISM?
I've met with Jim Wick. I'm going to answer that, please. I met with Jim Wick, and we spoke about PRISM. I met with him in March. You had made an inquiry back in May, and I said, geez, I told you that. I wrote back, I think I copied the board, saying, can you reach out and see, did they connect with PRISM? Because they can help everybody. And I don't know, it went into the ether. I would think that they would why wouldn't they want to work with PRISM?
Do you know, Justin, if they?
I can't speak for the group. I don't, I've seen them work collaboratively with the village board. They've come in here many times to talk to us. I don't know why they wouldn't talk with PRISM.
Right, me either.
That would be
It's a great resource,
yeah.
But at any rate, I think that they're interested in moving forward.
And Zach, you had something.
I believe when you cut the tree down to the base of the tree without removing the root system, that it propagates similar to how bamboo is, where shoots will pop up off of the roots underneath the ground, and they do have pretty deep tap roots. So you can't just, it's a network
and that's why they need a systemic. That's why it's chemical eradication, because you need to treat it to go down into the taproot. And I'm saying that also as a certified master gardener.
The other part of this too is the trees that would come down. I'm all for, getting rid of these trees.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be done properly, and I don't know where I would get rid of them if they were in seed, because that would create a problem somewhere else. We don't want to be liable for that situation. So,
and we don't just take it to the town.
I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that unless it was during the right season.
Yeah.
To do so with.
Yeah.
They did say that this would be in collaboration with the DPW, so I don't think they're going to go ahead and do a lot without that communication. And I think that if they did, that would be a reason to consider revoking the permission. That's really our recourse. If they start doing this work and we find out, hey, this isn't working out, they're not being safe, or they're not doing it in a way that it makes the most sense, then we say you have to stop.
So where would these trees go when they're cutting them down? I mean, they're sitting on the side of the trail, and then we're going to be responsible for moving them, relocating them to a different place?
So what Frank told me yesterday is that they would collaborate with you. They would not be just cutting things and leaving them all over. This would be after discussions with you guys. If there's anything that does fall down in the trail, they would put them on the side of the trail, and that's.
All right, because we would also need to be able to get in there to be able to pull them out. And then also, if you drop these invasive trees down on the trail, moving them to a location for staging until they are dormant enough to bring somewhere else to have them chipped up or burnt or whatever the process is going to be.
Can't burn them.
Burning.
No burn. You can't burn them. But you can't burn them. Even if you could, you should never burn. You only just part of the wood when it's fully dried and cured. But if you burn the whole tree, it can release, it's not healthy.
All right,
Yeah.
so burning's not
Yeah.
the possibility, but anyway, chipping it, where are we gonna store these trees until that point? Because if you move them, you're possibly, spreading them.
That is something that he had said he would reach out to you and
I'm not
talk with
An
him.
authority to.
That's where Prism's going to do the site visit, so that might be an
Right,
opportunity.
they did offer to
Let's-
come,
Yeah.
they feel a site visit isn't.
Yeah, so they can help structure the
So-
RFP.
Being objective here, it sounds like Friends want to move forward, obviously, and it sounds like Zach and Mayor and whoever has some concerns about the ability to do this and look to get a professional to come in and give us some advice. So would they be willing to work with Prism, and take advice from them and incorporate them into their plan, their long-term plan, so that everyone feels comfortable the way the Atlantis is being removed? What do you think?
I can't, unfortunately, I'm not a member of that group, I can't speak for them.
But this is our land.
Right.
We are making a decision about land that we own as a village, and I agree
Right,
with
so I
you,
think that's a
Lisa.
happy medium,
That's-
moving
we
forward,
should-
obviously, but
work
then
with
also,
Professional resources.
yeah, if we're offering a professional resource for free, that hopefully they'd be open to hearing other expertise.
That could be amended to your motion.
Nothing to prevent them from doing their work, but
I don't
as
think
an
this is a
assistance.
help.
Right, as an assistance, because I don't think they want to spin their wheels either, Justin. I think that they want to have this done right. But I think that they can move forward, but I think that they need to be open to just having a consultant to come in and just give them a little guidance. They can take it or leave it.
Would you want to amend the motion to just say to work with,
Yeah, to at least be open to hearing Prism,
professional resource?
just be open to hear, it doesn't cost them anything, right? It doesn't cost them anything, it's not gonna,
If anything.
Okay, I also had, a suggestion for an
Yeah,
amendment.
Sure, yeah, Lil.
And that is, would
Hold
it,
on.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Would it address?
Can you turn your phone off, please?
Yeah.
I thought if I'm hearing it.
I raised my hand.
Is anybody else here?
Okay, we're in discussion here. Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
Would it make
My
sense
hand's
to,
Okay, trustee Lampier has the floor, please.
okay. Would it make sense to amend the motion to change the caliber of the tree in as much as that would allow them for the pulling up of the root system at the same time? And it's not perfect. Clearly, the Atlantis is a huge
issue, right?
issue. There are very few, except chemical, ways to deal with them. Given that the group has offered to blaze this trail, and the way they do that, and I'm going to call it pulling weeds, because below a certain caliber, what you're doing is you're pulling weeds. So if could it be amended to be a smaller caliber to guarantee that the root system will be removed at the same time, so that the concern is removed regarding that is a question I have as a compromise.
Shall we take a public comment?
Yes, I guess we should.
Before the public comments, can I really quick add some things in? After talking to Gary Wilkins, our insurance provider, because you get to a certain caliber, we want to make sure what equipment is used on the site, that we're also controlling it, because it is our insurance that cover the friends as they're working out there as volunteers. And I would like to say that we limit them to no power equipment or something where chainsaws and things like that, because I don't want,
Okay.
you see where I'm going, just for protection of the village, if we can make sure we're
And there was
including
some,
that.
you know what, Yvonne, there were some trees that were cut and were left as spikes.
Yeah, when you cut a tree down,
And you punctured your tires.
Especially the smaller diameter trees, it basically spears taken out of the ground.
Yeah,
And
so-
that's what's causing issues for our equipment.
So you punctured tires, so you had to get new tires, and then there's also a safety issue really for people coming through with spikes
Sure,
that
anybody
are
walking
left.
through there could trip on it.
So that's an additional
Wood.
concern, that it be done in a safe manner with some training. Mhm. Yes,
30 years ago, we had an infestation of Atlantis in Pittsburgh Farms area. I single-handedly cleaned them out, researched what was necessary to make sure that they don't reappear. There are no left. In suggesting to you that we be allowed to remove Atlantis, We have fully researched this with professionals. I've talked to Jim Engel, Tom Santa, and arborists about the best techniques and what's necessary to manage Atlantis. In the areas that we want to remove, and I should also mention that a year ago when we were cleaning Mugler, we actually removed quite a bit of Atlantis, which has not come back. And I heard the discussion earlier. When you cut Atlantis this time of year, the seed pods aren't fully developed. So if you cut it, they're not going to reseed because they're not ready for that. What you do is you deprive the plant of vegetation during the most productive time of year, curtailing its spread. In the areas that we have seen these little groves, the rhizomes have already spread. The ground is saturated with roots. So if you cut down trees, all you're doing is depriving those roots of the sustenance that will allow them. So they are not going to spread beyond where they are. My experience over 30 years managing trees and dealing with tree issues, I can tell you this. I can also tell you that as the Friends, like every proposal we have brought to this board, we have talked to professionals who have given us the sound advice, because we don't want to make a mistake either. And yes, the property belongs to us. We are the residents of this village, and we're trying to help you move the project forward with the skills, the labor, and the passion that we have for this project as an exercise in sustainability education.
Thank you.
So I'd like to.
Hang on a second,
Sure.
just for the record, we're not talking about this negatively. We're talking about this in terms of how we can support with additional resources from, for example, from PRISM. So if you heard that earlier. So
I did.
we're excited about all the work. We think it's great, but we just want to make sure that everybody has the proper resources and training. That's really what Lisa was trying to do.
Thank you. You guys are doing awesome work, and we're really happy about the Arboretum. I guess if you have, I mean, you particularly as an expert, and if you've consulted with other experts, it might be just as easy and really important for me to see a quick one-page documentation that says the Friends of the Arboretum have discussed the removal of Atlantis trees, and this is what our guidance is, and signed by the experts, and then I would be really happy to move
We
forward with that.
can provide that.
I mean, because then it's almost
But-
like a PRISM expert, but I mean, I just, it's all kind of, it's verbal, and sometimes I like to just see it documented. This expert has said
We-
this.
Point of
this
order,
is-
excuse me, Lisa has the floor.
So I just, that would be really easy for me to say, okay, you've consulted with experts, you guys have educated yourself, so move forward. But right now, it's all just, we talked to this person, and there's obviously two very different opinions coming out for us. So it's confusing for me who's not an expert.
Well, like every proposal, we can certainly provide the documentation. What we find a bit frustrating is every time we try to move forward, there's obstacles thrown in our way. And I see in listening to the discussion today, it appears that has happened again. I'll be happy to provide you that documentation, but we have a narrow window of opportunity. The more work that we can do during the growing season when it's possible, the quicker the transformation of a disturbed landscape will be to a showcase of native trees, plants, and keystone pollinator plants. So,
Can
we can within, I would ask that you make that a condition of your approval, and we'll be happy to provide that documentation.
Okay, so do you want to amend the motion then?
Yes, I would like that,
Well,
if you could.
So one thing that I do want to make sure that we're not conditioning the approval in such a way that they aren't able to do this work until the board reconvenes, for example, in a couple of weeks, which would make them kind of miss part of their important window here. So if we're having them submit, and what is the review for the submission?
Just the experts that they've talked to that have verified them having some discussions and training, and the signature of who these experts are. And I would be happy if that could be provided to us within a week, but I don't have any trouble with them starting if they want to start. But that's got to come to us within a week. Just this one-page documentation of who these experts are, and that they agree with the Friends removal and how they're doing it. I just need to see that.
I'm sorry, can I also add the disposal process for this? That way,
And a proper disposal.
Yeah.
Right, the proper, right, and how we're going to dispose of
I'm
it.
not sure I'm comfortable just dropping them off if the town, the town has an issue with spreading feces, that's going to cause a problem.
Yeah.
We'll research that, we'll provide an answer for that as well.
So that would be a condition added to the,
Of the removal? Do you feel comfortable with that, Bob, getting that? I mean, we need to know.
well, it's also
exactly
what we're
concerned.
comfortable with, because we are removing, this is
Right, I'm just
village
saying, that
land.
Bob, get back from
Like working with glitter.
We're just worried about where it goes when
It's
it's
true.
pulled up, Rob, so that's
It's
a
everywhere,
concern.
it's everywhere, yeah. Yeah, okay, so
So-
you have that amendment added on?
Well, I'm really for the amendment of just providing us with some documentation so that we have that in file, that this is done with some consultants.
So
Some
the
expert
problem,
consultants.
I guess, my concern is that the board is not convening for another 2 weeks. So how do we receive or review something if we're not?
It's submitted to the office.
It can be email.
Yeah.
We still will have email.
Okay.
Justin, I'm not saying
Yeah.
stop the
I think
process.
that's pretty
I feel fine putting the motion in to continue their process or allow them to do that. I would just like to see within the next week that we get those documents come in, so I just would feel better
Okay.
about,
So I think that the recourse would be that if we get this submission and the board doesn't find it adequate, then we could revoke the permission in 2 weeks, right? And nothing really bad happens.
Could there be a permit attached to it, like have Steve got a permit for the work being done, depending on that paper?
I would like to, I think that this is getting a little bit too detailed for some
Yeah,
reason.
I'm in good faith.
We want to.
It's a resolution by the board.
Yeah.
It's an action taken by the board. That,
Yeah,
you know.
I think so going
It's a
back
matter of
to,
record.
so how would you like to form
Yeah, we get
that proposal, Justin?
right, so I think yeah, Jeff, you want to weigh in?
What about the power equipment?
And add it,
So I
yeah.
would say that,
Power.
I did mention that safety would be a priority. I think that the method of taking the trees down should not include chainsaws.
We're not using
Yeah.
chainsaws, we don't have chainsaws.
Yeah. So
I was
I
gonna
think,
put it in the motion.
yeah, sure.
Just
I
easy,
think
that's an
that
easy
I would be
one.
very comfortable putting that in there. In fact, I asked Frank that as well.
Okay, so let's tidy this up.
Yeah.
So where are we going with this?
So let's say that I amend the motion to add the fact that the Friends of the Arboretum will submit a brief summary of the best practices used and the experts consulted in constructing this strategy.
With the experts signing off, right? That's what you-
With the names and the experts signing off that they'd had that conversation.
With a signature of experts consulted, and that chainsaws not be used in the removal of the invasives.
Proper disposal, proper
And
disposal.
that the work would be done in conjunction with the DPW as far as appropriate disposal. Is that okay? I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's supposed to be in collaboration with you. And
We'll take care of the disposal, providing that I know what I'm supposed to do
That's-
with it.
Principal
all of
has
this
it
is-
sorted out.
all of this is
Yeah.
done with collaboration.
Okay, so we have a motion
I second.
amended. Okay, so there's a second to the amended motion. Roll call.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
All right,
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor
Motion
Plummer.
carries.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Okay.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Before anybody leaves, your own Pittsburgh Rotary is selling raffle tickets, and you could win 2 Bills tickets for